Hello, welcome to Louisiana, to my home here. My name is Marguerite Gray, and I'm the author of the Revolutionary Faith series. This is book 4, Draw Me to Your Side, and I'm going to read to you today a short story that can be found in the back of the print version of this book, and hopefully you will read along. This is the story of a minor character that goes throughout the series, and she's very important to the lives of the characters that are in the book. So I want to begin A Heart's Home, Jeanette's story, so read along with me. The Decision, France, 1750. Jeanette Dupre stared out her upstairs bedroom window, looking down on the multiple carriages looping through the circular drive in front of her uncle's house. This celebratory occasion would only happen once, for today her father and her uncle, twins, celebrated their 60th birthdays. The location for the fete brought friends and family out of the crowded city to a country estate 10 miles outside of Paris. 60 years today, a milestone compared to her 20 years. Jean Dupre did not look his age, if she even knew what that should look like. He and his brother Jacques enjoyed lives of leisure after equally inheriting lands, tenants, and coffers to run them. Her sister Marie and her 3 sons had been blessed to have her father's sparkling blue eyes and dark hair. She patted her hair, making sure it remained in place. Jeanette took after her mother, with fair skin, auburn hair, and amber eyes. At one point, she envied her older sister's looks. Who wouldn't want the Dupre blue eyes against olive-tinted skin? But it wasn't to be. At least she could look upon them from time to time. Pushing up from the window seat, she ran her hands down her light green striped stomacher, pinching her cheeks and smacking her lips to bring life to her creamy skin. Jeanette twirled around in her flowing skirt, ready for a time of dancing and feasting. Who knew? Perhaps she'd meet the love of her life, whoever that might be. On second thought, she probably knew all the guests invited tonight. Downstairs, her parents, aunt, and uncle greeted the guest. Marie stood in a side doorway, gesturing for Jeanette to join her. The look of frustration enticed Jeanette to run. What now? The children? A fallen cake? And her aunt guest? Marie pulled her around a corner out of view. I thought you'd never come down. Stepping back while holding Jeanette's hands out, Marie examined her. You look radiant. And so do you. As a mother of 3, you appear as a debutante. It was true. Her sister's gold-colored dress made her skin glow. Silly. You are the one on display, Jeanette groaned. That's what I need to tell you. Comte Laurent has been asking about you. Alexandre? Oh, no. I had hoped he'd stay at Versailles. You know I've never enjoyed his company, even as a child. I remember. I don't blame you. I just wanted to warn you. Jeanette shuddered. That was a match she refused to make, even if he were the last man available. I'll stay here with the children until it's time to celebrate. Marie shook her head, almost releasing the hour's worth of work on her high coiffure. No, you won't. I refuse to have to defend your absence. We'll do this together. Together, a united front. Except for the bit of news about the Comte, Jeanette relished the chance to mingle with her family and friends. She and Marie joined the receiving line, along with their cousins, Claudette, André, and Francois. In the ballroom, ladies in colorful gowns flitted like butterflies across the polished floor. Jeanette danced her fair share, hoping each time that Alexandra had found the perfect woman and would leave her alone. Right now, her father stared down at her. How many times had she danced with her favorite man on earth? His blue eyes penetrated her mind, even her soul. What's bothering you? He knew her so well. Father, I don't want to marry yet, and certainly not to any of the men here. Is it wrong of me to want to travel, to leave Paris for a while? She watched him through her eyelashes. Of course, I will always return to you and Mother, but I don't want to marry only for the sake of marrying. She sighed and clamped her mouth shut. She'd said it. Was he upset with her? Did he want her to marry Comte Laurent? Please, God, no. When the music stopped, her father guided her to an alcove and offered her a seat next to him on the bench. Ma petite, I think I have a solution. A solution? He's not angry or disappointed. His smile reached his eyes. No, he had the look he showed when he conjured a game with his grandsons or planned for a crop. He saw her, and he cared. I'm listening. He winked at her. It might solve your desire for adventure and a chance to decide if you want to marry. She did want to marry, but not be forced to marry. She nodded, wide-eyed and wondering. Your cousin Claudette and her husband are traveling to the British colonies in the Americas for a year to garner trade opportunities. If you desire, you could go with them. Your uncle has already made this suggestion on Claudette's behalf. She'd love the companionship. You'd see someplace new, practice your English, and return with the wanderlust behind you. Travel to the Americas. Did she hear that correctly? He offered the adventure she craved. Tears pricked her eyes and escaped. She didn't care. Tears of joy were nothing to swipe away. Yes, oh yes, Papa. Now, how is it that you gave me the greatest gift on your birthday? Parce que je t'aime, ma petite. All because he loves me. The Adventure. Charlestown, South Carolina, fall 1751. Jeanette leaned against the rail, wanting the sea mist to touch her face one last time before embarking on land, a new land, an ocean from her home. The salty moisture and pungent smell of 5 weeks on the ship daily reminded her that her adventure had truly begun. The long coastline loomed before her. A shipmate loaned her a spyglass. She adjusted it and focused on the only place that had anything resembling civility. A steeple, a tower, a fort, and a myriad of rooftops. The city of Charlestown, South Carolina, in the British colonies, first stop of many. Claudette joined Jeanette for her first view of the city. Her cousin had recently bounced back from a strong, unfortunate bout of seasickness. Jeanette had been willing to help ease her cousin's discomfort as much as she could, reading, storytelling, or wiping her brow. Mark and Claudette had been married for 2 years. Claudette and Jeanette shared the joy of having only themselves to care for on the journey. Her cousin's hand covered Jeanette's. I think I will love Charlestown no matter what, since land, any land, seems to be my preference. Jeanette laughed. I'll love Charlestown because it is a new place to discover. I have no expectations except to savor the adventure. After surveying the shore and taking a deep breath, Claudette closed her eyes and received the sun's rays. Thank you for practicing English with me. Although I've heard there are many languages spoken here, knowing English will be a true advantage. Remembering her school days, poring over English books, Jeanette recalled her desire to really know the strange language. Now she'd be put to the test. She covered her giggle with her hand. Would these colonists live up to their reputations of being a bit backwards? Surely not. Some were from prominent French and British families. Stopping her criticism, she promised to give them her honest attention and appraisal. The humidity and heat hit her with a force, yet it was not unpleasant after weeks in a small cabin room. Jeanette practically pushed her way down the walkway through the crowd to obtain her first glimpse of the city from land. Claudette would have to catch up later. Oh, yes! The houses stood majestic in their newness, with columns and balconies. No ancient gray stone here. She pointed her nose in the air and breathed in the scent of fresh sea and an aroma she didn't recognize, but wanted to have it bottled for daily use. It had to be a flower. Charlestown couldn't surpass Paris in age or history, but she didn't care for all of that. This city oozed life and freedom. Well, a little freedom. Her cousin lacked the authority of her parents, but Jeanette wouldn't bring scandal to their name. On that thought, she turned around seeking Claudette's presence. Had Mark already met a businessman? Jeanette supposed she'd have to reconcile herself to the fact that business was his goal. But now Jeanette's or Claudette's soirees, but not Jeanette or Claudette's. Soirees, teas, shopping, wandering, those were activities she sought. She planned to bring back scores of memories and souvenirs to carry her through her years at home in France. "Here, Jeanette, our carriage." Her cousin reached Jeanette's side and ushered her towards their conveyance. Jeanette longed to stick her head out the window like a 6-year-old child. Everything appeared freshly painted or washed, bright and hopeful. What stories lay behind the walls of the buildings? Jerking her head towards Claudette, she wondered how long her cousin had been speaking. Did she miss something important? "Mark has already secured an invitation to a soiree tomorrow night. Won't that be grand? Will it be in one of these mansions? I want to study their furniture, books, and even the gardens." "That I don't know. His name is Mr. Monagant. Imagine meeting a fellow Frenchman the minute we stepped off the ship. We'll have to visit a local dressmaker and make sure our attire is appropriate." Jeanette stared out the window again. "I want one of those hats." She pointed to a wide-brimmed tan hat with bows and flowers on the band. "Is it straw?" She crinkled her nose in contemplating what made the hat attractive to her. "Wouldn't our friends laugh at a hat made of straw? But if it's the fashion, to a milliner's we'll go." Their destination ended at a hotel on King Street, which boasted a huge marble-tiled foyer, facing a grand staircase. The chandeliers cast dancing geometrical images on the walls and floor. Comfort and luxury poured from the polished wood doors and shiny mirrors reflecting gorgeous bouquets of flowers. "I could get used to this." Backwards indeed. After a shopping expedition on the clean cobblestone streets, the ladies decided their attire for a soiree would be appropriate, if not a bit on the elegant side. Jeanette found a delightful straw hat with a green ribbon to secure it under her chin. Posing in front of the glass, she admired a rosy-cheeked young woman in love with life. Her auburn hair surrounded her face with wisps of curls. Hands on hips, Claudette shook her head. "You know you can't wear that to the ball tonight." Jeanette viewed herself at every angle, smiling, frowning, flirting, and why not? "I think I'm very attractive in it." "Because I won't let you. Young men will be vying for a chance to dance with you, but not if you wear a silly hat." Jeanette pouted for half a second. "Oh, all right, but I am wearing it around town today." Her cousin smiled, approved. "Let's go eat at the restaurant on the corner of Trad and King Street." One last look in the glass, Jeanette touched the flowers on her hat and batted her eyes. "You lead the way. I haven't paid attention to my whereabouts." Their table by a window faced Trad Street, allowing Jeanette to watch the people pass. Where were they going? Were they any different from Parisians or French people in general? One difference showed in their casual walk, as if strolling to the destination held more importance than the destination itself. They smiled and talked to each other, not only greetings, but meaningful words. She changed her friend's label from backward to laid back. She changed her, that was what she missed in her own life, spontaneity instead of rigidness. Her gaze lingered on a tall, dark-haired man entering the restaurant. He held his tricorn in his hand and waved with the other to the proprietor. He sat at a table next to hers, with his chair facing her. Could she peruse him from under the brim of her hat? Gray eyes, wavy mussed hair, plain white shirt with brown breeches, and brown, rather dusty boots. Dock worker, warehouse hand, honest work, definitely manual labor. Not a desk job. Why did that fact cause her heart to beat double time? Her father, possibly, Claudette, and Marie would negate the man's importance by his attire and occupation. Would she? Obviously not if her heart did somersaults. He smiled and lifted his mug to her. Her hat had failed its purpose, so she returned his smile and forced herself into Claudette's conversation about the soiree. A place this man would not be. Perhaps someone there would catch her attention and cause her heart to pound. Mark escorted a woman on each arm into the Monagalt house. After the introductions to the hostess, they entered a large open area that consumed the width of the house, having discarded the partitions, making 3 rooms into one. Jeanette willed her jaw shut as she gawked at the paintings. Sturdy, ornate furniture, sconces, chandeliers, flowers, and dresses in every color. Her own yellow satin with an opaque lace overlay fit right in with style and quality, not backwards at all. She'd give this crowd a raving report in her letters home. The small orchestra played minuets and ballads, offering opportunity to fill the dance floor. Before long, Jeanette found herself dancing with many well-versed young and old men. Names swirled in her head. At least she didn't have to struggle with titles. There were none. A tall, dark-haired, handsome man approached. His gray eyes seemed so familiar. No, it couldn't be. The man from the restaurant. Mark introduced her to Mr. Henry Wilson of Charlestown. She blushed and shared a smile with Mr. Wilson, noting the secret they shared. Enchanté, mademoiselle. Voulez-vous danser avec moi? And he speaks French with a heavy accent. Bien sûr, mon plaisir, monsieur. On the dance floor, Mr. Wilson made a confession. That's the extent of my French, so you can say anything else and I'll only nod. She laughed until she hiccuped. Embarrassed, she covered her mouth. I promise I'm not laughing at you. It is so refreshing to be around such honest people. Now for her own honesty. You look different from this afternoon. Did you think I would come to a prominent man's house in my work attire? I own a mercantile on Trad Street. Hours in the storage room renders me a bit dusty and messy at times. A merchant. Wasn't most of her family in the shipping and merchant business? Just because Mr. Wilson owned a store on land didn't mean they'd not like him. After all, Mark had introduced them. Stop it. It's one dance. No one needs to approve. Or did they? Jeanette found herself wondering when she'd see Mr. Wilson again. It became a game over the next few weeks to determine where he'd show up in her day-to-day wanderings around town. The invitations that Mark secured surprised her. Were the colonists so enamored with French merchandise? Personally, she loved the local fair. One afternoon, she guided Claudette to Wilson's mercantile. Admittedly, Jeanette's curiosity gave her no choice. Her fascination or infatuation with the South Carolinians intercepted her whole Charlestown experience. The tinkle of the bell announced their entrance. An older woman of medium height greeted them with an offer of help. The store, unlike the monstrous ones in Paris, stocked the everyday essentials such as flour, spices, and fresh produce, plus well-crafted baskets, pottery, and finer china and material. Jeanette had noticed the local women preferred a homespun material with subtle patterns. She ran her fingers over a sky blue one with tiny purple flowers, soft and lightweight. May I assist you, Mademoiselle Dupré? And just like that, Mr. Wilson appeared. The aisle didn't seem wide enough for him. Another half an inch and she would touch him. She had to raise her head to catch the light in his gray eyes. They sparkled. For her? She grasped her hands in front of her, for she yearned to touch the brown wavy hair over his ears. Don't be silly. Good morning, her voice squeaked, but she refused to follow it with a giggle. I think I want this material for a dress, but I have a problem. Do you know anyone who could make one before I leave? He nodded his head toward the counter. As a matter of fact, I do. Well, thank you. I will speak with her. He didn't move aside. Mademoiselle Dupré, would you like to go to the theater with me tomorrow night? She saw, felt, heard, and sensed in her inner being his desire to be with her. Was it possible that this man, in this place, at this time, wanted to know her? Could he understand her adventurous spirit? Or could he, even by his very acceptance of her, allow her to find her true purpose with him by her side? The heart. Every day of the next 2 weeks journeyed into her thoughts and soul. A new taste, a new spicy aroma, a new tree or flower, a sunset or sunrise over the ocean. Could she leave this place? Half of her wanted to stay, to skip New York, Philadelphia, and Boston, and the other half craved the journey and experiences. Henry, too many occasions to remain Mr. Wilson, found the scent that had accosted Jeanette upon her arrival. Today, the day of her departure, Henry brought her a bouquet of late-blooming gardenias. The scent would fill her cabin and penetrate her thoughts of Charleston. No, of Henry. She stood on the walkway, facing the man she loved. Yes, loved beyond a doubt. I don't want to go. Her hands rested in his. But I won't ask you to stay. Not yet. Go, travel, see, and do wonderful things. He lifted his fingers to her cheek. and lightly caressed it, leaving goosebumps up and down her arms and palpitations threatening the rhythm of her heart. Then come back to me, to Charlestown. I'll be here waiting, if you'll have me. She couldn't imagine her heart being comfortable anywhere but with him. Henry, are you asking me something? He smiled, his wide, familiar mouth offering her hope. Yes, Jeanette, I want to marry you. I want to share this journey with you. Will you consider marrying me? Yes, oh yes, she laced her hands around his neck, forgetting Claudette close by. I'll return, I promise. I'll bring my heart home to you. Thank you for reading along, and I hope that you stay safe. Blessings from Louisiana.